with the NBA All-Star Game coming up in a few weeks' time, and the NFL Pro Bowl just having taken place in Las Vegas, Nevada, I decided, what the hell? Let's split the difference and take a look at the 2007 NBA All-Star Game from Las Vegas, Nevada, and the Thomas and Mack Center to be precise. Boy, what a weekend this was for Sin City.
You dig that? We're going to Vegas, Mike.
Vegas! You think we get there by midnight?
Money, we're going to be up 500 by midnight.
Yeah! Vegas!
Vegas, baby! Vegas!
So we are halfway, or a little more than halfway through the 2006-2007 NBA season. And this is frankly, it's an odd time for the association. We're in the post-Kobe and Shaq era, but we haven't quite got to the Celtics' Big Three and Kobe's final run. We have a lot of stars coming of age. We have other stars sort of on their last leg, sort of playing their way out of the league. And it's really just sort of a transitional time for the NBA in general. And that brings us to this specific moment in time, the 2007 NBA All-Star Game. So why don't we take a look at the rosters? We'll start with the Eastern Conference, which features a trio of guys in the starting lineup who I am sure will never, ever play together in a starting lineup ever again. I promise you that. Oops. Looks like I may have been wrong about that. Elsewhere for the Eastern Conference, we get just this mix of players. You've got guys like Gilbert Arenas and Caron Butler, who are a product of a very good Washington Wizards team. The head coach of the Eastern All-Stars is Eddie Jordan, the Wizards head coach as well. And then you've got a lot of first-time All-Stars. Dwight Howard's a first-time All-Star. Joe Johnson gets in as an injury replacement for Jason Kidd. But yeah, it's just sort of an interesting mix. A lot of young talent on this team. And then obviously you have the elder statesman in Shaquille O'Neal, who is making his 14th All-Star appearance in this game. Over on the Western Conference is dealing with a slew of injuries. Steve Nash isn't playing. Yao Ming isn't playing. Allen Iverson isn't playing. And Carlos Boozer, who was named to his first All-Star game, isn't being able to feature due to injury, which means we get some dubious replacements. So the most notable of the Western Conference All-Star replacements is Carmelo Anthony, who was a deserving All-Star, but was suspended for 15 games for his involvement in a brawl, so probably doesn't have the stats, but David Stern just chucked him in anyway. And then we get to Mehmet Okur, who is a replacement, and Josh Howard, who's a replacement, who's having a good season for the Mavericks, but, I mean, these aren't guys that say NBA All-Star. I mean, Josh Howard, I don't know about that. However, the West does have plenty of star power with McGrady and Kobe Bryant in the backcourt, I guess, and then Kevin Garnett, who's still with the Timberwolves, is in the starting lineup, as well as Tim Duncan. And then you get an interesting Suns contingent. Nash was elected to play in the All-Star game, but couldn't. However, you've got Sean Marion and Amari Stoudemire, who are part of Mike D'Antoni's high-powered, high-octane Suns teams at the time. On paper, this looks like it will be a great All-Star game, if there is such a thing as a great All-Star game. Lots of points. I'm going to try my best to avoid making fun of the defense or lack thereof in this game. But with that, let's get to tip-off. Oh, sorry, it looks like Wayne Newton is still performing James Brown covers. So while we wait for him to wrap it up, why don't we take a look at how Las Vegas even got an All-Star game? Because as you know, there is no NBA team in Las Vegas. Well, basically, this had to do to a lot of lobbying by both the mayor of Las Vegas at the time, as well as the Maloof brothers, who are sort of in their heights of ballin'. They're showing up in David Banner music videos. They still have money, although their day of reckoning is coming soon. You can learn more about how they almost named their arena after a scam in the video in the upper right-hand corner of your screen. So back to the All-Star Game in Vegas. The lobbying worked. They convinced David Stern to give them the game. They promised to take the betting, or they didn't allow betting on the All-Star Game to happen on the sports books. David Stern relented, although if you see his face during this weekend, he is not a particularly happy camper, and he does not want to be there. Speaking of not wanting to be there, if you look at the faces on the players during these introductions, they clearly look like they have spent a few days in Vegas and they are lethargic. Shaq almost slips on his way down the stage. Nobody is mentally present for this game. And speaking of which, why don't we finally go down to tip-off? All right, so we are going to wait on LeBron James, who is going to cut what they call in wrestling a white meat babyface promo. It's very Hulkster-esque. He thanks the fans. It's super boring, and it's also feels awkward. Like, I want my LeBron James to be a heel, and he doesn't even sound sincere when he's giving this promo, but we're still doing that. We're still waiting on it. But I think finally, let's get to tip-off of the 2007 NBA All-Star Game in Las Vegas, Nevada.
Shaquille O'Neal, Tim Duncan on the opening tip, and it's volleyballed by Shaq to LeBron.
Gilbert Arenas gets us underway with a brick, if there ever was one. There's one thing I want to note in the pregame. The MC who's doing all the player introductions definitely gave Gilbert Arenas an ahead of his time shout out. Here it is.
Star game from Washington, Agent Zero, wizard shooting hero.
If you only knew, guy, if you only knew what Gilbert Arenas was getting into a few years later. We then get some vintage Kobe Bryant, who's just a joy to watch. We'll see him throughout the game doing things like this. Shaq may want Kobe to tell him how his ass tastes, but he cannot put home this dunk in a bit of an embarrassing moment for the Big Diesel. We then proceed to get just a series of bricks by both teams who are just hucking up shots. The announcers are Steve Kerr, Doug Collins, and Marv Albert, and all of them are sort of tiptoeing around this by saying it's a slow start, the teams are finding their footings, etc., etc. But I mean, we all know what's happening. We all knew what these players were getting into in Vegas. So it's just it's a nice try by the announcers, but everybody knows the deal here, and we just get brick after brick after brick after brick. After one more brick, someone in the arena, I don't know who, you can't really pinpoint it, just lets out this weird scream after one miss. The scream ignited something because we finally get some action. Kobe with the sweet reverse here. Classic Kobe, vintage Kobe. And then very next play, we get a LeBron James to Dwayne Wade alley-oop. Nice. However, that may be a bit too much action, and we do get a TV timeout and a commercial for what's next because TNT thought the perfect lead-in to their 24-hour Law and Order marathon was the NBA All-Star Game. Not sure just how much crossover they got for that, but I mean, 24 hours of Law and Order, who can beat that? Back to the action. Marion misses a dunk, and then LeBron James proceeds to show him how it's done. Dwight Howard then checks into his first NBA All-Star Game and proceeds to show everyone that he does not understand the concept of what All-Star Games are all about. Don't worry, there'll be plenty more of that from Dwight Howard as the game progresses. Next up, we get a Jermaine O'Neal own goal here. Like, this is just, one of a million. I mean, this is all-star talent on display here, although probably not what he had in mind. LeBron James attempts to show Jermaine O'Neal how it's done, but his effort on this self alley-oop was probably just as ill-advised as O'Neal scoring on his own basket. I mean, it's an ambitious attempt at best. But LeBron is not done here. Apparently, the announcers mentioned he saw that he was about to be substituted, and he just chucks up an air ball just for the hell of it. And yeah, he is then substituted out of the game, and we won't see him for a few minutes. You can take the player off the Detroit Pistons, but you can't take the Piston out of the player, as Rip Hamilton commits an open court foul to prevent a fast break, and no one is particularly happy about that. With the first quarter winding down, we see Vince Carter doing some Vince Carter things. And with a few seconds left, Tony Parker makes his presence felt by getting a couple points before the final whistle. And that is your first quarter. It is the West 39 and the East 31. We now move on to the second quarter of the 2007 NBA All-Star Game, with Vince Carter still doing some Vince Carter things. VC at his peak was awesome to watch, and we get a few moments of it during the game in 2007, although it's not his traditional Vince Carter performance. And just think, he would go on to play for like 40 more years after this. With the East looking to close the gap on the West, Shaq misses another dunk. What are we doing here, Shaq? How do you miss 2 dunks in one game? So, have you ever wanted to know why Kobe doesn't pass? Was he just a selfish player? I may have an answer to that. Kobe with a sweet no-look dish here, and then Sean Marion just bungles the whole thing up. Come on, Sean. You've gotta. I mean, when Kobe feeds you like that, you gotta finish it, man. It's okay though. Kobe decides to go the more traditional route with this move right here. Not only am I going to not make fun of the lack of defense in this All-Star game, I'm going to show you a little defense with KG being his typical salty self with the rejection here. That's a pretty epic block. That goes a few rows deep in the crowd. I mean, it's a hell of a defensive play, especially considering this is an all-star game. The West is comfortably in control at this point, and just rubbing salt in the wound is Tim Duncan dropping dimes to Kobe Bryant. This brings us to halftime, and the Western Conference All-Stars have a very comfortable 20-point lead. And you'll notice by the lack of highlights, they've done it by a lot of jump shooting. Dirks hit a few jump shots. Mehmet Okur came on and hit a few jump shots. Like, they are just mid-ranging the Eastern Conference All-Stars to death right now. And we enter halftime. It is 79-59. So, for halftime, let's talk about what happened off the court in Las Vegas during the 2007 NBA All-Star Game, because this was a shit show to end all shit shows. 400 people were arrested during the All-Star weekend in 2007, but it goes way beyond that. If you ask anyone who lived in Vegas at this time and who was there for this weekend, it is basically like their Vietnam horror stories. Like, I think residents still have flashbacks to just how bad this weekend was, and having talking to several about this, they will just tell you what a nightmare it was being here for this weekend. In addition to the arrest, it was just everyone was wilding out, and it was just a disaster. Everyone's basically come out and admitted it to this point as well. Recently, there was an article in the Las Vegas Journal-Review, so just recalling how crazy it was and how ill-prepared Vegas was for this event, which seems odd given just how Vegas is pretty much prepared for any level of debauchery known to man, but they just could not handle the All-Star Game on All-Star Game weekend. Also, since it is halftime, let's talk about Thomas and Mack Center, which I've been to Thomas and Mack Center a few times. You can read our review of Thomas and Mack Center at thetouchback.com. Link is in the description. But this is just the most uninspiring place to have any sort of basketball game at all, especially with the glitz and glamour of the All-Star game. Like, the highlight of Thomas and Mack Center in my multiple trips there has been the Dairy Queen, just because you don't see a lot of those in arenas, or at least the arenas I've been to. But it's just such a meh stadium, and I just feel like I understand why they put it there, because obviously T-Mobile Arena wasn't around, but it's just such a blah venue. It's kind of inconvenient to get to, and it's not really fitting of an All-Star game, which, again, I just felt, Thomas and Mack, come on, really? Back to the action, start of the third quarter, and Dwight Howard shows us once again he's still not sure what these All-Star games are all about, as he is hunting for his post-ups down on the block. We then get a more traditional pass from Kobe Bryant, as this one's just all over the shop. Like, I don't know what he's doing here. The third quarter, as you can tell, starting off a little slowly. We get a very sad report from David Aldridge, who's talking about Eddie Jordan, who I guess told DA he didn't really felt like he belonged, and he wasn't sure what he was doing at All-Star Weekend, and he was like alone in his hotel watching. It's very sad. Like, and I like Eddie Jordan. I think Eddie Jordan's probably never gotten a fair shot. He did really good with the Wizards. I know him mostly from his time with the Kings in Sacramento, where he's just been dealt a lot of bad hands. However, the Wizards are kind of in turmoil at this point in the juncture. They've called team meetings. Eddie Jordan and Gilbert Arenas aren't getting along particularly well. That is played out when David Aldridge does an interview with Arenas later on, and Aldridge mentions, oh, this has got to be a big honor for you and Karen Butler and Eddie Jordan. And Arenas goes out of his way to not mention Eddie Jordan, and it just shows that the tension is there between them. The Wizards would go on to make the playoffs. Unfortunately, they would run into LeBron and the Cavs again. Jordan would get another season in Washington before being fired during the 2010 season. Back to the action. No, we get a very awkward Craig Sager Jeep commercial. I have never seen a man in a purple suit or any kind of suit drive a Jeep Wrangler apart from this one time. We then get a look at some of the celebrities on hand at All-Star Weekend with Jay-Z and Beyonce and half of Kelly Rowland. Ouch. That has gotta hurt for 1/3 of Destiny's Child. Back to the court, and we just get a very odd series. I'm not sure what the hell's going on. At this point, the game is over. Everyone sort of has realized the game is over, and we're getting stuff like this. Shawn Marion throws it down, but Arnold Schwarzenegger does not look like he enjoyed that moment. Hopefully he likes this Kobe alley-oop a little better. The Eastern Conference looking to make a comeback, and Rip Hamilton with a fantastic pass to, who knows? Shawn Marion with another dunk. The lead is at 31 points. You can stick a fork in this game. It is done, but not before Tim Duncan with the epic bounce pass here. Like, I could watch this pass all day. This is just a hell of a pass. With the third quarter coming to a close, Vince Carter gets us a nice looking hook shot. That's a move you don't see from VC every day. And that is the end of the third quarter. The West running away with it. It is 119-88 as we begin the fourth quarter, and the teams are just sort of exchanging jump shots as neither one seems particularly bothered to try at this point. Strike that. I am dead wrong. Do not listen to that last thing I just said, because Jermaine O'Neal, despite being down by double-digit points, gives us one of the best defensive series you'll ever see in NBA All-Star Game history. This is a joy to watch, just given the situation, the score, the fact that he's doing this. I love this. This is a great series from Jermaine O'Neal here. We then get a LeBron to Dwayne Wade action here. I'm sure we'll never see these two sharing a court like this ever again. Of course, it wouldn't be an NBA All-Star game without Shaq doing his whole shtick, this time bringing the ball up court. Mehmet Okur just locked him down though, and Shaq goes nowhere, and he doesn't get there in a particular hurry. Great defense, more great defense here this time from Mehmet Okur. So with the game out of hand, Kobe's still in there, and his mission is to win the NBA All-Star Game MVP. Here we get him with just a great reverse. A few plays later, no look pass from Kobe. He knows what he wants to do. He's going to win MVP come hell or high water. We then see Joe Johnson, who's still out there today creaking along, make an appearance in this All-Star Game. This is his first All-Star Game, by the way. Amari Stoudemire shows he's been getting some passing tips from Steve Nash down there in Phoenix, because this is a pretty epic dime to Carmelo Anthony. Tony Parker then tries a fairly ambitious lob pass, with the results not being quite as good as what we just saw from Amari Stoudemire. Kobe's still on the hunt for that MVP trophy, and here he forces the backcourt violation, really showing a level of intensity no one cares to match at this point in the game, with it well out of hand. We get a nice mellow tip dunk here, and then Tony Parker finally lands that lob pass Amari Stoudemire on the finish. Time is winding down, and Kobe looking for just one more signature play to clinch the NBA All-Star Game MVP award, and he gets it here. Just sends the crowd home happy. This is just, it's classic Kobe. It's classic All-Star Game Kobe. Just a joy to watch. This is just, even though no one else is trying, it's still fun. It's still a great play. So is that game over? Nope, not quite. Chris Bosh decides that he's going to steal Kobe's thunder on the hunt for a 23-point play. Unfortunately, this will only count for 2 points, and that is basically your 2007 NBA All-Star Game. West Wind going away. So that is it. Let's put a nice bow on that. Kobe Bryant, for all of his hard work, does win himself the All-Star Game MVP trophy with 31 points and a rather un-Kobe-like 6 assists. Amari Stoudemire and Sean Marion both had good games as well, although Mike D'Antoni did seem hell-bent on getting them some shine throughout the game. The Western Conference All-Stars set a record for assists and field goals made. You're probably wondering why you didn't see a lot of highlights, and that's because the West, as I mentioned earlier in the video, they were just taking a lot of jump shots. This team had a lot of jump shooting talent, and there was just a lot of open mid-range and open three-pointers, and they were just gladly taking them. And the score really sort of reflects just how proficient the Western Conference All-Stars were when it came to shooting the basketball on this All-Star weekend. Let's wrap things up with the Touchback's classic game review score. Just to refresh your memory, 10 is an instant classic. You got to watch every second of the game. 0 is avoid it at all costs. And 5, just check out the highlights. And the 2007 NBA All-Star Game from Las Vegas is a 5. It's hard to grade All-Star games fairly because it's not about the games, right? All-Star games are about the performances and they're about the moments. And there are enough moments and enough performances in this one, in particular from Kobe Bryant, but also the Suns players. It's fun to see Carmelo, I think, does some interesting things as well. And you don't need to go back and watch the entire thing. It's not particularly interesting from start to finish, but the highlights are very enjoyable because it's Kobe, obviously, and it's an interesting moment in time for the NBA as far as where it's going, because it's Pistons Spurs in the final this year. Obviously, Dallas would be upset as the number 1 seed, and you really can't quite see where things are going just yet. I mean, if you said to me in 2007, get ready for Garnett and Ray Allen and Paul Pierce playing on the same team, get ready for the Supersonics to be in Oklahoma City, and get ready for Bosh, Dwayne Wade, and LeBron James to be on the same team a few years from now, I would have thought you were crazy. So this is just a game, check out the highlights. It's a fun watch. There's a lot of interesting things that do happen, but don't feel like you need to go back and watch it from start to finish because it's not engaging enough to do that. That does it for this Touchback Classic game review. Let us know your thoughts on this All-Star game in the comments section below. We'll be doing this again. I don't know what, so if you have any suggestions on games you want to see reviewed, just let us know. And until next time, this is the Touchback. I'm Cheyenne Hollis, and make sure you hashtag take it out to the 25.